He didn't compliment her. He didn't perform. He didn't try. He said two words, and something in her shifted. She leaned in. Her guard came down, and when she got home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Two words. And once you understand the psychology behind why they work, you'll never approach attraction the same way again. Most men spend years believing the same thing, that attraction is built through effort, through saying the right things, looking the right way, showing up with the right credentials, the right status, the right moves. Work harder, try more, give more, and if none of it works, try harder again. That belief is the problem, because the men women can't stop thinking about aren't trying harder than anyone else in the room. They've stopped trying entirely, and they've replaced trying with something almost no man around them is doing. Not a technique, not a strategy, an internal state. That's what these two words actually point to. Not lines, not tactics, expressions of who a man actually is, underneath the performance. Before the words, you need to understand what's happening inside her, because without that, the words mean nothing. A woman's social radar is one of the most accurate detection systems in human behavior. She reads micro-expressions she can't even name, tone shifts, pauses, the small gap between what someone says and what their body is quietly communicating underneath it. She processes all of this faster than conscious thought. This is why female psychology works in a way most men find confusing. A woman can sit across from a man who said everything right, checked every box, hit every note, and still walk away from that conversation feeling like something was off. And she can meet another man who said almost nothing impressive, no smooth lines, no rehearsed confidence, and feel completely pulled toward him without knowing why. The difference isn't what was said, it's what was real. Psychologists call this emotional congruence, the alignment between what a person presents on the surface and who they actually are underneath it. When that alignment is missing, when a man is performing rather than being, her nervous system picks it up, not as danger, as noise she can't trust. And most men are performing constantly, running mental scripts, managing the impression they're making, calculating what to say next while she's still talking, watching her face to see if it's working. She feels all of it, every second of it. The calculation behind the smile, the strategy behind the compliment, the anxious need underneath the confidence. That performance doesn't create attraction, it creates the opposite, a low-level sense that this man isn't quite real. And a man who doesn't feel real can't make her feel safe. Now here's what changes everything. The man who stops performing doesn't become less. He becomes the only real thing in the room. And real, in a world full of performance, is magnetic in a way that no technique can replicate. Because you can't fake the absence of performance. The moment you try to fake it, it's performance again. This is why some men attract women with almost no visible effort, and why other men work 10 times harder and get nowhere. The effort itself is the problem. The first word is interesting, not as a compliment, not as filler to keep the conversation moving, as a genuine response. Watch what most men do when a woman says something unexpected. They either agree immediately to avoid friction, to keep her comfortable, or they pivot straight into talking about themselves. Both responses send the same signal. I'm not actually here. I'm managing this interaction. But when a man hears something he didn't expect, and instead of rushing to fill the space, he pauses, looks at her directly and says, "That's interesting. Tell me more." Something shifts, because that response communicates 3 things at once without saying any of them out loud. I'm not threatened by your perspective. I have my own frame, and I can hold yours alongside mine without losing either. I'm actually present with you right now. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's research on interpersonal closeness showed the deep, sustained curiosity, the kind that makes a person feel genuinely seen, is one of the most powerful bonding mechanisms between two people. Not attraction through appearance, not attraction through status. Attraction through the feeling of being truly noticed.
When a woman feels genuinely interested to a man, not because he's flattering her, but because his attention is completely real, her brain releases dopamine. Oxytocin builds. She starts to associate him with that feeling, and feelings attach themselves to specific people. This is the real reason women lose interest in men who only try to impress. Impression is aimed at her judgment. Curiosity is aimed at her as a person. She can feel the difference before she consciously registers it. Most men try to be impressive. The men who understand how female psychology actually works try to be interested. Interesting, said with calm, genuine curiosity, is the verbal signal of that difference. It says, I don't need this conversation to go a certain way. I'm not auditioning. I'm here, and I'm actually paying attention to you. That kind of presence is so rare that when she encounters it, she doesn't know what category to put it in. And things she can't categorize, she keeps returning to in her mind. If this is the first time you're seeing attraction broken down at this level, there's a lot more of this on Dark Male Code. Subscribe. This is what the channel is built for. The second word is one you didn't expect, which is exactly why it works. The second word is no. Not cold, not aggressive, calm, clear, unhesitating. Think about the last time a woman heard that word from a man who was genuinely attracted to her. Not a no that immediately softened into, well, I mean, if you really want to. Not a no wrapped in 3 apologies and a redirect. A clean no. I can't do this weekend. I've had this planned for a month. Let's do something next week. She pushed back gently. He smiled. I understand, but no, this weekend doesn't work. No drama, no anxiety about her reaction, no reaching for her approval in the silence that followed. The man watching this exchange expected her to get upset. Instead, she looked at him with a level of respect that the watching man had never once seen directed at himself.
Here's the psychology behind why that happened. Women aren't consciously looking for men who say no to them, but their subconscious attraction system is wired to detect and be pulled toward men who have a stable sense of self. When a man says no calmly, whether it's declining a request, disagreeing with an opinion, or simply not going along with something he doesn't want, it sends a signal so rare it cuts through everything else in the room. The signal is, I don't need your approval to feel okay about myself. Psychologists call this non-reactive confidence. It's the foundation of what people describe as masculine presence, not the performed version, the loud, aggressive performance of strength. The real version, the quiet, unmovable kind, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. And it is, without question, one of the most powerful triggers in female psychology. Not because women enjoy being denied, but because a man who can say no calmly is a man whose yes actually means something. Think about what happens with a man who agrees to everything. He bends his plans, softens his opinions, rearranges his values to keep her comfortable. His agreement means nothing. She already knows he'll agree. She can predict him completely. And a man she can predict completely, a man she can move with a word or a look, doesn't make her feel safe. He makes her feel like there's nothing solid to hold on to. But a man whose no is real, whose limits exist whether she approves of them or not, his yes lands in a completely different way. Because she knows he didn't give it to manage her feelings. He gave it because he meant it. And a man whose words mean what they say is a man she can actually trust. Trust in female psychology isn't a separate thing from attraction. It is attraction. Here's where these two words become something more than techniques, because they can't be used as techniques. A woman's radar picks up performance, and performed curiosity is more unsettling than no curiosity at all. Performed boundaries are worse than no boundaries. She feels the performance. These words only work when they come from somewhere real. Interesting says, I'm secure enough to be genuinely curious about your world without needing to compete with it or redirect it back to myself. No says,
I'm secure enough to have limits without your permission to hold them. Together, they form the psychological profile of something women describe consistently across cultures, ages, backgrounds as the most attractive experience they've had with a man. Someone who is fully himself, not performing strength, not performing interest, not managing the room, just real. This is why the men who seem to attract effortlessly aren't doing anything visible. They've simply stopped performing. After enough years of realizing that performing never actually worked, they put it down. And the moment a man puts down the performance, what's left is the only thing she was looking for anyway. Here's how you actually build this, not as a concept, but as something real. For interesting, the next time someone says something you don't agree with or don't fully understand, resist the reflex to correct them or redirect to yourself. Pause. Say, "That's interesting. What led you to that?" Then listen. Not to prepare your response, not to find the flaw in what they said, just to hear what they're actually saying. Curiosity is a muscle. The more you use it, the more naturally it shows up in your voice, in your eyes, in the way you sit when someone speaks.
Women feel the difference between a man who is listening and a man who is waiting for his turn to talk. One makes her feel like she's real to him. The other makes her feel like background noise in his own performance. 4. No. Start in situations where the stakes are low. A friend asks you to do something you don't want to do. Say no, calmly, without a paragraph of explanation. A colleague suggests something you disagree with. Offer your alternative without apologizing for having one. Boundaries aren't walls. They're not coldness. They're not aggression. They're the architecture of self-respect. And every time you hold one, calmly, clearly, without drama, you become a little more of the man that female psychology instinctively moves toward. Not because you followed a rule, because you became someone with something solid at the center. These two words have always existed in the men women remember, the ones who made her feel something she couldn't explain, who held their ground without needing to announce it, who paid attention in a way that made her feel like the only person in the room. Those men weren't running techniques. They'd stopped running from themselves. Interesting. No. Presence. Limits. 2 words. 1 internal state. The rarest thing she'll encounter. And she won't let go of rare. Before you leave, which one of these are you actually missing right now? Not both. Pick one. Interesting? The ability to be fully present with no agenda? Or no? The ability to hold your ground without needing her approval first. Drop it below. Be specific. That answer tells you exactly where to start. Dark male code.